Now, one of the advantages of the brain is that you can have any piece of information linked to anything else. So what this enables you to do as a business development analyst is to go ahead and map out all these interesting relationships that are otherwise invisible to you throughout your day. It also enables a very deep level of categorization that facilitates information discovery. And what do I mean by that? Well, let's just look at this one thought here. It's the Word document that I launched. I have it under several different categories. I can see it's a knowledge management project, and I can see connections to other projects. It's under the client, and by mousing over that client, I've tagged or typed that client as a VIP, so I immediately know sort of the gravitas of this particular Word document, and I can see it's also linked as an active deal and proposal templates. It was a pretty good one, and I can move into any area and sort of triangulate around that to get additional information that's related to what I want to do. And for those of you that are managing sales teams, that is an absolutely fantastic ability of the brain to present that related information. Often we waste a lot of time sending template proposals, documents. We've answered questions to RFPs, 10 times over in 300 different ways. With the brain, what you can do is leverage your best thinking for yourself to execute and close your own deals, or for your team, and then share that brain either on the cloud or even just as a personal brain file or through EKP, our server. But the end result is really the same with this network of interconnections that sort of becomes greater than any one particular file. The sum of it all, the gestalt, really has meaning. So now you can see I've shifted into my proposal template into my sales area, which is under sales, which takes me back to the top. So often what you'll find is you're sort of navigating in a brain that you've already developed. Is you might start down one path and come up in a completely different area, and that's something that is very unique to the software. It's something that you can't really do with a file folder drive. When you're drilling down 5 different levels in your file folder system, that's it. You're at the bottom. You're in that one folder. You really can't see any other connections, and that's a problem, especially if you're training new sales reps or business development teams. It's not very inspirational for brainstorming as well, but with the brain, you don't have that problem. So something that's sort of at the bottom of one area can be at the top of something else. So just in terms of focusing a little bit, before we get into all kinds of really interesting and cool applications, I want to talk a little bit about just some basic ideas for and knowledge models for building out your sales brain. This particular area is what I like to call the Sales Playbook. It's an area where you aggregate all your information resources to close more business. So of course it's called sales. Under sales, we have sales resources. This is great because, again, you want to leverage and use and create sort of a standard of a level of communication for any product that you're selling. Now, this particular company sells e-business services, so they do online web development, branding, and web presence strategies. So they're sort of a consulting and IT company. So, of course, contracts. So if you need to, as the sales rep of this company, go in and understand you're scoping out an engagement, you want to set up a maintenance contract, statement of work, all the templates are right there. So they're very easy to get to for people. Sales presentations, you can take your best presentations, create a thought for that, and people will know where to go. If you're working on a new presentation, you can go ahead and link that into something else. So for instance, this particular presentation on Citibank got so developed that we decided let's make a connection there. And of course, just as easily as we've connected something, if it's no longer relevant or we don't want to put it there, we can delete that. And if I want to, of course, create a new document, that's just as easy. So if I want to call something a new company presentation. So I'm just going to create a new thought, add that under sales presentations. And now what I can do is I can just right-click on that thought and add an attachment. And of course, in this case, I'm going to add a PowerPoint presentation. And I can start working in that. You'll notice that what it does is it names the file, the name of the thought. So I'm just going to go ahead and save that. And that saves right into TheBrain. The other thing that TheBrain has as very nice for managing documents is a notes area. So I can take notes on this. This version of the presentation is still being developed. Need to get some customer logos. So when I come back to this particular thought, and I'll just make this a little bigger so everyone can see that, you know I can remember my thinking. So, and all I have to do is mouse over that particular file, and that note is appearing below. I've captured my idea. I haven't had time to finish it, but I've left it in a way that I can return to it in a moment's notice and remember, you know, what was I thinking, what am I doing, or somebody else can pick this up if I want to go ahead and maybe link this or assign this to Fred, who is an existing account representative. I can just type in first couple of letters, select Fred, and make a connection. So now I can either chat with Fred about working on that, or if I need to decide, you know, what is Fred up to, I'm going to click on Fred, and now I can see all his different connections there. So let's go back to this sales resources area. The other thing that I can do is, of course, set up scripts and template responses. This is fabulous for customer service, customer care, any type of complex sales process. It's great to map that out in TheBrain. So if sales reps are getting a lot of questions on company background, you can see in this particular thought, we're actually using the notes area here just to have that key pitch or message right here. I know a lot of broadcasters that use TheBrain sort of as their visual script to podcasts and things like that, because really what I can do is just click on a thought and you know, see exactly what it's related to, or have a note right below so that I'm ready for anything in effect. Now you'll notice here that each thought has a specific icon. So the blue is a FAQ. The sales resource has a little file icon, and then I have another thought type called key promotion. And what a thought type is it's an additional level of meaning you can add to a thought. So if I wanted to come in here and create a new thought called 2011 e-business promotion, I can do that, and I can actually type it right there. So if I want to type that as a key promotion, which is this thought type, I have, of course, a number of thought types. I can do that and hit the checkbox. And now you can see these thoughts, they just appear, they're a little bit more, they stand out a little bit more. And the way to create a brand new thought type, won't get into too much of that. We have a webinar on that next week. But just to show you real quick is you can go into your thought types window and just add a new type. And that's how you get that there. But now, as a sales rep, I can see I've got here my FAQs, but here are my key promotions. So if I'm on the phone with a client and I'm not aware, I'll immediately know, wow, maybe I should recommend my small company big package ideas. I'm talking to a small company right now where we do corporate identity, search optimization, website, and web presence all in one. So we have sort of a total solution. Or maybe I'm recommending my 2011 e-business promotion. So you can sort of traverse through what would otherwise be sort of complex and elusive in a very real way using TheBrain. So that's just an example in terms of sales templates. The other thing that you can do, which I think Tracy's going to get into a little bit more in depth, so I'll let her take you through this, but just to kind of show you this area in my brain is the sales pipeline, where you can actually visualize sales stages, and then go ahead and put your deals under these particular stages. So in this case, we've got thought types for levels of closing. So if you have, 6-phase business development process, you can go ahead and link key deals under that as well. And then finally, sales territories. One of the nice things that's great about TheBrain is, of course, you can add zoomable icons, so maps. So if you want to sort of distinguish who has what and divide different areas. So for instance, if I click on the Midwest area, of course I can see the map, what that covers. I can see who manages Midwest sales managers, and also kind of what our key targets are. So you can see Jim and Nick are working in Milwaukee. I've got a few Milwaukee targets, including Harley Davidson, and we've done some different work for them. And then I can see that they're in manufacturing. Who else are we working that's in that industry? Well, we're doing some stuff with Boeing, and I can see what we're doing there, read an email, or contact Mallory. So it's really about providing that more in-depth context. And I can change my view. If I want to go ahead and see distant thoughts, I can turn that on. Or I can actually shift to outline view, where I can actually open up different areas. And I'm actually broadcasting in a very low resolution so that the speed of the webinar is fairly good. But you can see a lot of your brain by moving into outline view. You just kind of plus and minus different areas or move through that and scroll. So now I can see if I want to open up the operations section of my business brain, or go into what we're doing here with a different prospect or anything like that, or maybe look at what's going on with my Midwest sales managers, Nick Taylor. I can go ahead and do that. Now that's outline view. And then finally, the other view that's great for business development is expanded view. And again, I'm just going up to the little switch view button, and I've selected new view. Now from here, I can actually go ahead and move my thoughts around to open up key areas. So if I want to open up all my sales territories and see how they come together, I can continue to do that and put things in a way that helps me see, what's going on with South Central, North Coast, and, maybe it's Elizabeth Hay that I want to look at, what she's working on, and then have that broader view on what I'm doing. And then I can also save that view as well. So if I want to go ahead and save that expanded view, I'll just call this sales map. I've got that saved, and I can return to it in a moment's notice. And then normal view is probably the best way to navigate around. And a double click sort of brings the brain interface full screen, and I can double click to get my notes area back as well. So that's sort of the playbook example. I have another playbook example that I want to show you where sales reps are moving through complicated information relatively easily. And then we're going to move into some more specific business development examples as well. So this particular example here, and this is actually in Brain EKP, published in our server version, and we'll cover that a little later on, but basically you can use Personal Brain on your desktop. You can synchronize with other sales reps, other team members through our cloud services, or you can set up your own server. The interface and the value of it will be the same. So we're focusing today mostly on the structure of the brain, not any one particular product, but if you do have some questions about that, we're happy to entertain those. This particular company deals with selling complex insurance products. So this particular brain is, again, a playbook of all the products and services to help walk a business analyst through that. So if I'm working with someone and I'm interested in doing some personal planning, and maybe we're talking about asset protection, which can be fairly complex, I can click on that thought, and in the content area below, which is basically the same as the notes area in the personal brain, I can read the legal definition of what asset protection is all about and start talking to the customer or the client. And then if it's something that I want to, if I want to protect, look at mortgages and home equity loans, or anything like that, I can go into that area and look at maybe, paying the mortgage with insurance, and this kind of thing. And what you'll notice in this particular area is I have all different types of possibilities. So I can move very quickly through different areas and shift focus. And you'll also notice that under each topic there is a thought type called a strategy. So as the customer calls in or I'm talking to them, I can see what their issue might be, but then below that there's a relevant solution. So if the client is concerned about a home equity loan, I can now go ahead and talk to them about protecting that home equity loan with permanent life insurance, which of course just happens to be one of the products that this particular financial services company is selling. And so below that in the content area, full information on that. The other thing with some more complicated products and services that sales reps tend to sell, sometimes it makes sense to break these documents down into thoughts. So if I need to articulate benefits quickly, I can click on that thought, and in the content area below, I've got a listing of all the benefits. And I'll just give the web meeting a chance to load. Limitations, tax implications, all that stuff is all sort of info chunked out in a way that it's broken down into little simple pieces that help me articulate that as a sales rep. So really, we're making it pretty easy. We're almost automating the thought process for an insurance agent with this brain, and you want to get to that point where it's all laid out, all your possibilities, so that you can take all your team members to the next level, and they're not fumbling through documents, or they don't have the right answers. So from here, once I've talked about that, I can see that this, of course, is related to our permanent life insurance product. Here are other products, and we can talk life insurance, or we can go into any other type of product, which takes us back up to the top of this brain. So just another example for those of you who are trying to educate a sales force or a customer service team, how the brain can be used, very simple but powerful method to ensure that you are giving the best answers, the best information to a potential customer that you're talking to. Now what I want to do is I'm going to shift gears a little bit and go into the business development area of the brain. So not only can you use your brain to educate your sales reps and facilitate a more intelligent sales process, but sort of doing your business planning, your business development, the many-to-many connections that you can gain with the brain are absolutely essential in this area for business development. So what I recommend companies do is create an area, create a section. It could be a full brain or a section on your competitors. So you've mapped out your competitors, and again, you can have competitors linked to all kinds of things. So again, this is a fictitious example. This e-business web development company has a number of different other creative web design agencies that they're competing with for business. So they're in the brain, so you can kind of keep track of what they're doing, any press release or any new news items. You can see I'm launching the site Wake Interactive. So if this is related, this particular team is doing some stuff that we thought might be interesting for our Citibank client, I would make a connection there. So now anyone who's working on this Citibank account can see, oh, okay, this is what's going on with this agency in this industry space. And, it's all mapped out. It's all very easy to understand. The other thing that you can do in business development, of course, is go ahead and map out partnerships as well, your business plan. So any key partnerships, what that might look like, map that in my brain. And, of course, new ideas for business development. So if I want to create a thought called business expansion. I can go ahead and do that. And the brain is just a ideal tool for brainstorming. So there might have been a lot of ideas for expanding the business that have been talked about, that you've had meetings, but getting them into a concrete place where you can actually begin to grow and develop these ideas is extremely important for company growth. So this could be done individually. You can do this as a sort of yourself as a strategist, or you can throw your brain up on a projector or create a team brain and do this collectively as a group. Either way, it's quite interesting. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to start thinking, brainstorming, and capture all my thinking on how I can expand this business in this brain. So a couple things. First of all, we can, of course, hire more, let's say, sales reps. That will help. So I'm going to add that idea into the brain. So I've got that there. I can continue to flesh this out, or I can continue to brainstorm. The other thing that I can do is we can open an office in Asia, a lot of new Asian business. So I'm going to put that into the brain as well. And if I want to create multiple thoughts, I can do that. So let's say I want to hire new executive team, or perhaps I want to increase our online advertising. Now what you can see, oh, and of course the brain's going to spell check me, is I'm using the semicolon to create multiple thoughts. Which is also nice. So if I can also do, if I want to acquire a new business, let's just put in acquisition of company B. So several different ideas can be entered in all as one, separated by the semicolon, and now I've got those ideas into the brain. Now from there, the great thing about this is it goes way beyond a whiteboard or a document, because I can actually start researching and executing on some of these ideas. So if I want to, acquire company B or open up an office in Asia, there's a couple things. I might have to chat with legal about what the legalities are of that. So I'm going to make a connection to legal, because this is going to involve a lot of legal work. And I might also want to do some research. So I'm going to go up to options and hit the search web feature, which actually takes whatever I have as my active thought, puts it into the search web, and go out to the web and start doing some research. And let's just go ahead and get some information on some of the Asian markets. So if I just want to go ahead and get a pulse on what's going on, all I have to do is find whatever website that I want. I can simply drag and drop this URL into my brain. So let me just go ahead and get this particular web page to come up. And now I can drag and drop that. And what that does is that makes a connection to that web page. It'll take the name of the thought that the webmaster has assigned that. And from there, I can go ahead and I can change that name. I can also take notes on the, interesting market data, and other things. And if I need to, for instance, think about, executive relocation, that'll take a lot of work. I can add a thought for that. Maybe I want to attach a budget or spreadsheet to that to start planning that out as well. So what you can see is I've transitioned from sort of brainstorming mode to execution mode very easily by adding a web page, a spreadsheet in this brain. Now, the other thing that you can do is if you're trying to make a decision, you can use thought types and thought tags to add some additional dimensions to these thoughts. So when I'm looking at all 5 of these ideas and I can't really decide what's the best way to go, what I can do is tag my information. Tags are just an additional level of data that you add to your thought. So I might want to set up tags for time frame and cost for each of my ideas, and that might help me make a decision. So in the tags area, you can see I've got various tags for low cost, high investment, something I can do now. So for instance, acquiring company B, very interesting idea, but that's a high investment. So I'm going to tag that as high investment. So now when I'm thinking about that, I have sort of in the forefront of my mind at least the idea, increasing online advertising, that's what we would classify as medium cost. So that's something that might look a little bit more appealing from a cost perspective, just by tagging things. And you can also do, other sorts of tags. For instance, when talking to the CEO. So these tags are really nice because you can tag things really anywhere in your brain. So if we go back over to, let's say, this Citibank area, and I want to tag this as something that I'm going to do when I'm in London or that I need to talk to the CEO about, now what I can do is simply click on that tag, and it aggregates all the thoughts in my brain that have that particular tag on that. And CEO walks into my office, or I've got the call, I've got my agenda right there, so I'm ready to go ahead and do that. So let's just go back to that area on business expansion. The other thing that you can do is create thought types. So for instance, if hiring more sales reps was a hot topic, it generated a lot of buzz in the meeting, or maybe it's a green-lighted project. That one was a no-brainer. So I can go ahead and select that as a thought type. Now the difference between a thought type and tags is I can have multiple tags on a thought. A thought type, you can actually color code an icon, and that'll become the thought's primary attribute. So let's say opening up an office in Asia. That's what we would consider at this point a hot topic, something that we need to do a little bit more research on. We're not ready to make that jump, so I'll go ahead and tag that. So now what you can see is these thoughts in the brain and these different ideas. Not only have we made some connections to how to do it, but there's a little bit more context and semantic meaning to each of these ideas through thought typing and through thought tagging as well. So that's another idea and direction for the brain. In terms of other market planning, what you can do is this brain sort of focus on having one brain for everything. I know a lot of different business development and marketing managers who like to create specific brains for specific topics. So for instance, this brain here that I want to walk you through, and this is a template that you're all welcome to. Feel free to email this to me, or I could email this to you rather, after the call. And you can email it back to me if you want us to look at your brain, but that's not required. In addition to, instead of just having a static document, the marketing plan actually has thoughts for key areas. So you've got executive summary, where you can map out through your keys to success, your objectives, your vision. Next phase of that would be target markets. What do you want to do in each market? What are your ideal customers? And then, of course, SWOT analysis, if you want to do any sort of strengths, opportunity, threat analysis there. And each one of these areas in the brain serves as a guide to help you develop your market strategy. And it keeps you honest. It makes sure that you've thought of everything thoroughly. It puts a little bit more process or discipline on, market expansion. And, of course, you want to make sure you've got, key business issues, cost-benefit analysis, and sales forecasting again, and then finally any business-critical issues. So this particular brain is an example of how you can just blow out just one area on market planning, and that in and of itself can become a brain. So whether you do it as sort of the one brain that has the complete view of your business, or you create separate brains, it all works together fairly nicely. And then finally, just one other example, just to kind of give you a sense of the intricacies of visualizing various industries. I'm opening up now my One World social networking site. Um, I'm going to turn off the distance slots here so everyone can see this a little better. This particular brain was designed for a couple different tech startups who are entering the social networking space. And of course, there's a lot of different companies, a lot of different niche markets within that industry. So understanding how those players all fit together and creating a brain helps a new business owner decide where they fit in, how to distinguish their own business. So this particular company, One World Social Networking, it's a fictitious example. They want to start a company on more altruistic social networking for global change. So they're looking for venture capital. So we mapped out venture capital here, working on, of course, marketing strategy as well, integrating consumer research behavior, market assessment, defining who their target markets are, and of course understanding the market space itself. So in this example, we have segmented the market of social networking sites by sort of genealogy sites, green living and social activism, which this company would be particularly interested in understanding, photo sharing, and so on and so forth. And from there, of course, you can drill down, of course, the larger-than-life social networking sites. Now, the purpose of this brain was to help this company understand, what investment partners would be most appropriate for their business model. So by looking at a particular company, and let's just do Facebook because everyone knows what Facebook is and who invests in stuff, so it'll actually help you understand how powerful this can be in the brain. When I click on Facebook, of course, we've got links to, all kinds of cool articles, and I can click on this article and e-link about data portability and learn about that. So again, just links to all kinds of online resources. Just organizing your bookmarks in a conceptual way from a business development perspective is hugely powerful using the brain. But a couple things. Above that, in this brain, and these are, the way you set up your thoughts, we can talk about that in the Q&A. To some extent, we have best practices. Other times it's subjective. In this case, the company is listed under the investors. So, of course, there were several investors in Facebook. One of them, of course, was the Founders Fund. So that particular venture capital firm is mapped out in this brain. You can have and links to other companies that they invested in. And then, of course, the key players. So if you do get a meeting with any of these individuals, you can say, okay, well, I know this guy, I know what he invested in. Let me check out his company. So you can use that to sort of do your homework and be more prepared for your meetings. And the other thing, of course, we've got Facebook listed under what we call a simple interface. This ties into product development, of course. The session's more about biz dev, but of course your business development research is going to affect, as a company, what you're developing. So here, this particular company is looking at how they design their user interface for their target market, and they've classified things as simple interface like a Google Classic interface, or a power user interface, which has kind of a lot more data when you come into the site. And they're going to make some decisions on that, and then by seeing, which companies have done what, that'll help them kind of make a decision, decide, what direction to go in product development. So you can see how in this particular brain we've gone from venture capital, market analysis to product development in really just several clicks, and it's a very powerful experience for a startup company to a global business, because seeing the connections leads to more insight, and bringing it all together really will help you get it done, and get it done in a way where you are leveraging the knowledge you have. So with that, I think I'm going to pass presenter over to Tracy, and she's going to dive in a little bit more deeper on actually taking some of your data like Salesforce.com and such, and how to integrate it into the brain, and then how to share that through our cloud services.
Great, that sounds terrific. Well, I'll go ahead and get started. Now, what I'm going to show to you, this of course is global software. This is also a fictitious example, but a lot of these, the examples I'm going to show you in this brain really are ways that I myself use personal brain and use our software for, being in sales and being in marketing and also having a role in customer service and support, and how I can use the brain to manage all of that. But today I'm going to zero in and I'm going to focus specifically on sales and the sales area of this brain for global software. So let's go ahead and just dive in here into the sales section of this brain. And what I like about using the brain for kind of visualizing sales pipelines is there's multiple ways to view this information. So if I want to come into this pipeline specifically, I could, in a pipeline, sure, you could create just kind of an Excel sheet for that, but that could be attached in here, and I can filter this pipeline. If I want to just view information by the stage, so similar to what Shelley showed you, I also have kind of sales stages visualized. So if I want to be able to see right away, how many companies am I, working with in, kind of that initial introduction stage? I want to see that kind of filling up so I know things will move down through my pipeline. So visualizing the actual stages. One way I might want to view this information. But, on another hand, I might want to come in and actually browse by territory or region. I might specifically be interested in a particular state or region. So in this case, I've just opened up a territory, and I could continue navigating through here to break apart the region itself or the state and actually go in. Maybe I'm planning a business trip, and I actually want to see kind of out of a particular region that I might be flying into, what potential deals am I working on there? How could I kind of, perhaps plan a few visits while I'm in this region? So I'm also able to very quickly and easily view that pipeline by territory. Let's go ahead and go back to my sales pipeline. The other aspect to this is I'm going to go ahead today. I want to browse this pipeline by the product I might be selling. So in this case, I sell a number of different types of software products. And I'm going to go ahead and go into my help desk application. And from here, now we're at, I'm selling a product called Help Desk in a Box. And as you can see, I have linked as child thoughts all of my kind of key prospects. I use the brain personally to, really get my hands around, wrap my hands around kind of my key prospects. Not every single person I might, have a phone conversation with during the day. I myself use it for, again, just kind of those key target accounts that I'm really trying to work hard and kind of wrap my hands around and kind of manage that relationship and so forth. And that's where I really find the brain so much more powerful than just a pipeline report, because I can do a lot more here. I can more effectively kind of manage the big picture of that account, with keeping, of course, my pipeline in here as well. So here's kind of my key prospects. So I'm going to go ahead and link a new prospect in here, but the first thing that I just want to comment on are some of my jump thoughts to give you an idea of something that can be done here. As in addition to, again, this product, Help Desk in a Box, and here's the clients I'm working on, there's a number of different, let's say, cross-promotion, other areas or thoughts that you might want to remember and link in here to this product. So when you're working on, maybe you're reading up your information on this product, or you're getting ready to call one of these clients, you can remember about, again, here's an example of a cross-promotion, this Make-A-Wish Foundation. And as you glance in my notes, you can see a write-up of what this promotion entails and a link to get more information. And as you can see, I set up what's called a link type. And a link type allows you to explain the relationship between two thoughts. So this Make-A-Wish Foundation is a cross-promotion. It's a promotion that my company is engaged with, with another foundation and organization, and we're trying to raise some money here for the, through the holidays or the Q4 of this year. Now you'll see I have a training course, which again might be something that I want to remember to add on when I'm selling a particular product. So we've got this information all here. And then finally, LinkedIn, there's also an internal promotion. And as you can see, there's an end-of-year sales incentive. And this is a promotion to get the sales reps out there kind of selling as much of this help desk in a box product as we can before the end of the year. Now, with sales, oftentimes you might have colleagues, sales colleagues that you're working with, and you're all based in different locations. You're different time zones scattered around the country or even internationally, but you still need to share resources and information that you're working on. What's great with Personal Brain is, of course, this application can just be downloaded and you can run it on your computer and only use it for yourself. But we also have a cloud version that we'll be talking about, TheBrain, and that allows you to set up your group. So you might have a team of sales folks, and maybe you're the manager, or you're all colleagues or peers, and you just need to share and leverage all of this information that you're working on. So in this case, you can see this end-of-year sales incentive. When I glance down to my notes, I can be popping in this information. So I've entered in, kind of the date and the time. I'm directing it to, everyone in the sales department. Don't forget about, the extra program that's going on right now. And I've even jotted down, obviously here's just some fictitious information, but here's the sales folks that are kind of leading the way in the first and second and third place. And then under my Thought tab, you'll see I have the particular files. Maybe these are the full, complete program details, incentive details, and as well as the actual sales figure themselves. Those are attached. So this information, when I simply synchronize, if I'm using Personal Brain and TheBrain, I could actually be sharing out this information. So again, when you think about the sales reps that are scattered around in different locations, it's a very easy way with TheBrain to be able to share that to all of those, again, remote individuals. Well, let's go ahead and go back to Help Desk in a Box, and I'm going to go ahead and just create a new prospect for us today. And I'm going to create my new thought, and I'm going to go ahead and select a thought type of prospect. Let's go ahead and add that. And now I've got my company added in here. Now the next thing I might want to do is I want to link it to some other thoughts or categories in this brain. So this company, Verizon Windows, I'm going to link by the sales stage I might currently be in. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of jump ahead and say I'm in the stage 4, kind of proposal stage to this deal. Now I've got that parent added. But you know what, even further than that, I also, again, like to have my pipeline categorized by region. So now, again, I'm able to see this company, what region they fall within. So now, again, when I want to zero in on a region, I can see everyone that I'm working with, as well as by the product and, of course, the sales stage that you currently have that project in. Let's go ahead and keep going. I'm going to create just a couple child thoughts here. One for my contacts. I might, of course, have contacts for Verizon Windows. But the first thing I'm going to do is place a comma there. And I'm going to create another thought. So again, to create multiple thoughts at once, just use a semicolon between those thoughts. Make sure I got that right. Okay, so I've got some contacts and my to-dos. The first thing I'm going to do is let's just go ahead and go into the Verizon Windows to-dos here. So as you'll notice, when I was creating those two thoughts, when you're creating a new thought, if you place a comma in that thought name, that thought will inherit the parent name. So now I can see, of course, these are, the thought I've just created is actually my Verizon Windows to-dos. Because if you start creating a thought called to-dos, you might have to-dos for lots of different clients you're working on. So to try to avoid having the duplicate thoughts, I like to use what we call the comma trick. And then you can now see I have a nice unique thought name, and I'll never get my thoughts mixed up. This is the Verizon Windows to-do list. So let's just go ahead and keep going, and I'll just quickly create a few to-dos for you. Now in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and actually number my to-dos. I need to, they fall in order. I need to complete number 1 before I move on to number 2, and then that's going to lead to number 3. So I'm just going to add some numbers here and create these 3 to-dos. So the things I'm working on, number 1 is that I need to finalize and finish my proposal. And then I'll be going through a demonstration. And then the third step to this would be then if all goes well, the next thing we'll do is we'll launch a pilot. So let's first go into proposal, and I'll just very quickly drag and drop a file here. So similar to what Shelley has shown you, but the one thing that I need to do, because again, I'm sharing this brain, not only this is valuable information for myself, but I'm sharing it with my team. So I need to get this updated proposal. See, I have a version 2. Well, I want to get that attached in here. And you know what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to do a right click and say, copy this file in the brain. So now I've just made this an internal file so I can share it with other people. The next thing I want to do is I want to use my notes. I really like the idea of using notes, again, just for myself to refresh my memory on where I'm at on a particular deal. But also if you're sharing it, it's a great way to kind of communicate to the people you're sharing your information with. So I'm going to go ahead and insert the date and the time, and maybe I just want to quickly leave a note. Updated my proposal. So let's add my note, do the insert the date and time. So now we've kind of completed that. The next step, of course, is maybe I also have a demonstration. I'm going to go back out here into my folder here for Verizon. And in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to hold down Control, and then I'm going to drag and drop this file. And I'm just dragging in a presentation. Now, the whole reason for holding down Control is when you're dragging and dropping files, if you hold the Control key and then you drag and drop, that will make a copy of that file. So automatically, I see this file is attached, and you can see in my Thought tab, this is saved as an internal file. So I've just made a copy of it, again, by holding down the Control key. Or if you happen to be on a Mac, that would be the Command key. Okay, now the next thing I want to do actually is I'm working through these to-dos. I want to jump over to the tags real quick. And there was actually a question, and I believe it was from John, and he actually asked about kind of how can you, if you've got some to-dos in your brain, how can you kind of prioritize those to-dos? Can you do that with tags, or is that thought types? Tags is a great way to do that. So I actually, as you can see, have a number of tags already set up. But I'd like to, if you have some to-dos in your brain or active, projects or tasks, setting up tags to help you prioritize those is a really fantastic way to use them. So as you'll see, I actually already have them created. I've got a tag here called high priority, medium priority, and low priority. So let's just go ahead and apply. Just simply check and add a priority here. And the third one, this launch pilot, another idea for you, this is actually, by the time we get to the launch pilot phase, that's realistically, we're looking at that as being Q1 of next year. So I'm just going to go ahead and tag that as Q1. So now you'll see that I clearly know, kind of where I need to prioritize things, what needs to be focused on first, and then again, if I'm spending some time looking into, well, what do I have going on for Q1? I could also look ahead and look at my items that I have tagged as Q1. One thing that's really nice about these tags is you can very quickly, when you look at your tag, I can see right away that I have 2 items, 2 thoughts that are tagged high priority. And again, as Shelley had showed you earlier, if I want to know, well, what are those 2 tags, click on it, and it'll activate those 2 tags here, or it'll activate this tag in the Plex here so I can see just a filtered view of everything that I'm working on that's kind of tagged as being a high priority. Now, so let's go ahead and kind of fast forward, and now let's assume we're going to engage in this pilot. We've gotten the go-ahead. So changing a tag is very simple. I'm just going to uncheck it, and maybe now I change that tag to just say we've gotten the green light, or we're going forward, or maybe it's, this is now a customer, we've got a signed contract, or this is just a green lighted project to go ahead and move on. It's an approved project to begin this pilot. So let's go ahead and add a few phases and stages to this pilot. And in this case, I'm going to go ahead and just list them as phase 1 being prototype, followed by a semicolon again for the multiple thoughts. So now I've just created 3 different phases, phase 1 for prototype, and I could rename my 2 and 3 to also match here and say phase 2 and phase 3. Let's go into phase 1. And from here, maybe if we've begun this, I could be listing down in my notes here. Maybe I want to enter goals for the phase 1 or the prototype stage. What are the goals for this? Let's make this a little bit larger, and I could be listing out these goals. Well, what are the goals? To build, we'll say to complete prototype for small test group. Maybe that's basically here's what the goals are of this phase. Of course, along the way there might be attachments and things that I'm entering as well. And I could keep going on, really talking about moving information through phases. We could really probably spend an entire session kind of mapping this particular, launching this pilot, moving this through this pilot in these different stages. We could spend a lot more time on that. But just to give you kind of a quick snapshot, an idea of what you can do, how you use those tags to help you, then I might also just simply go back to the Verizon Windows to-do thought, and I might want to enter some notes here as well. And again, as you see, I always like to enter that timestamp. I like having that date and time of when I may have done that. And let's say I'm going to go ahead and leave my notes of, what's been updated. Well, I've updated the proposal, and we received green light to move forward. To move forward on pilot. Now I've got this information as well. So again, what I like about the quick summaries of the notes is it's really nice to just very quickly activate a thought and be able to glance at your notes and have at your fingertips kind of everything that, your quick summary, so you can answer that question if a colleague calls you and says, where are you at? Where are we at with Verizon Windows? You can activate the thought, have all the information here in your notes that describes where you're at, summarizes everything. All of your key documents or web pages, all of that can be attached as well. You've got the great kind of visual interface that allows you to categorize and link this information in kind of multiple ways here. Now the final thing that I would do is I like to create a lessons learned thought. Here's another thing that I think the brain really kind of goes, where it helps me and how I think it goes beyond just being kind of system to store my sales proposals or my, kind of marketing collateral. You can really do a lot more than just that. So I've now created a lessons learned thought. So let's assume this, this Verizon Windows deal, now we've moved through, this could be, they're now a customer, we've gone through the pipeline. I could change their thought type from being prospect to now being customer. As you see, I've just changed that. But now I've created a lessons learned. Well, what are the things that I learned kind of throughout this process, this full, closing the deal into the implementation or the training? I could use my notes for that. Here are the things I learned. And you jot them down. Definitely think about those things, capture them here in your brain, because it might be very familiar to you, that day for, the next couple months. You'll really remember, of course, those things that you learned about that, during that project. But after some time, you might forget them. So capturing them right here in the brain, I think, is a really good idea. And then furthermore, I want to now link this to a broader category, a thought that I've created just simply called My Lessons Learned. Now I've added also the Verizon Windows, the things that I learned on this deal. This is now connected up to a thought called My Lessons Learned, which you can see, I can keep going back up here, and this takes me to a much broader thought, a thought just of my name. Here's myself. Today we focused in on kind of the sales, how I might use the brain for sales. But at the same time, this could be much broader than that, and this can really be a brain of just myself and everything that I'm working on, things that interest me, people and ideas and skills that I have, goals. Use the brain to kind of keep track of setting your own goals and projects and so forth. So it's all here. So again, a much broader context as well. And then again, to kind of close the loop on this, I today added a new client, Verizon Windows, and I worked on a new project and I updated some proposals. The final step to all of this is you might be familiar with WebBrain, and that allows you to synchronize your brain so that you can have online access to it at any time. It synchronizes your brain in the cloud, so you can at any time. If you have online access to your brain, but you're not in front of, or you have a browser, but you don't have your computer in front of you where you might have personal brain, great. You can log in after you synchronize. You can log into your WebBrain account, retrieve all of that information. Or on the flip side, if you don't have internet access, the great thing is that you still have personal brain running, offline on your computer where you can update this information. And then just when you simply get back to the office and you want to synchronize to send your changes back to, WebBrain for, again, this could be just you yourself, or with TheBrain services, it allows you to synchronize, with a group of folks, a group of salespeople, so that you can all leverage, and kind of stay in contact on, where you're at with particular deals and what you might be working on. So I'll just go ahead and let that synchronize. And the next step is you'll be able to log into your WebBrain account. Let me see if I have WebBrain open right now. And I might still be logged in here, so let me just click on Account. And I've actually already synchronized this brain, so I'll go ahead and just log in here and open up my account page. And from there, you can see here's all the brains that I have uploaded onto WebBrain, which of course now includes this global software. I can actually click and open up this brain in my browser. Again, I can create thoughts online when I'm using WebBrain or TheBrain services. Hopefully this is loading up for you as well. I can simply, if I need to add new information here, I can do that right here by dragging to create a new child thought. Maybe I just need to quickly get in a new idea that kind of came to me as I was traveling, and I just have access to a browser but not my computer at the moment. And I can also upload files, upload web attachments, just add some notes. Here are the details on my new idea. And just go ahead and save. And now I've got that captured right here. Again, now I'm in my browser. When I'm back at my laptop or my computer, again, I just simply synchronize to get these new changes that I may have added. The other thing that you can do is you can also actually apply access controls with TheBrain, and you can, let's go back to Account. I could give access to this brain. Maybe I want to go ahead and go into Settings. Let me just resize this real quick here. As you'll notice, when you upload brains to WebBrain, you can set them to be public. You might want to share this information with the world. You can set them to be unlisted, which means they won't appear publicly on webbrain.com, but it allows you to very easily just grab a URL of your brain and give it to someone, so they can just click on the link and open it up themselves, and it gives someone reader access. Or you have it private. In this case, this brain is private, and I want to go ahead and add Shelley. So I'm going to go ahead and type, and there's Shelley, so I'm going to select her. And I'm going to go ahead and give her editor access to this brain. I'm going to hit Submit, and that's going to save that. Now I've given Shelley access to this global software brain, this sales brain, so that now she can actually download that brain zip and begin contributing and reviewing my information, adding her own information. And that's how a group of sales folks can, kind of stay in sync with each other and use the brain as really your knowledge hub or your sales sales knowledge base and resource center for, kind of sharing all of your information.
So I think with that, we're going to close today's session, and I think we covered a lot of ground. If you do want some example brains, you can go to thebrain.com/apps, APPS, and I'll be happy to email anyone that link. We have other template brains that you can download. And again, if you want to go more in depth on particular features, do join us this Friday for Personal Brain 101. The class sizes are a little bit smaller, so we can get to even more questions. And they're a great resource for new users and existing users to sort of pop in and out at any time. So I'd like to thank everyone for attending Selling with Your Brain, and hopefully you have seen sort of the power of organizing by connections and how that can ultimately lead to expanding your business and getting more done within your organization. So we're going to close today's session, and hopefully for those of you who have joined us today, we've sparked a few more connections in your own brains. Thanks, everyone. Bye.